Welcome back to the Stay Broke Podcast. Today we're joined by Matt Howard, owner of Scoma Construction Services here in the Triangle. Matt has spent years helping homeowners transform their houses through remodeling, additions, and custom projects. This is a business built from referrals, not marketing. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So we just kind of like to start out the same way with everybody. Just tell us kind of who you are and where you're from.
I grew up in Eastern North Carolina, and have been around construction in one form or another my whole life. Didn't really know what I wanted to do until I answered an ad in the paper in college for a carpenter's helper, and started out carrying studs around and digging holes up in the mountains, and just loved it. I love being able to see what you did at the end of the day. And I've just, every job I've had has been around some form of construction, from that very, very bottom of the totem pole to now I've been self-employed for 16 years. So,
What'd your parents do?
my dad was an accountant. My dad actually worked for the same company for literally his entire life.
Okay.
He was, started as a gopher when he was 16 and went to college, got a degree in accounting, came back, worked for him as an accountant, and eventually was the controller and retired with them. So
Wow.
It's funny. I asked him a question about a job interview one time, and he said, "Matt, I can't help you. I've never done a job interview." But it's a pretty unique story. You know, he'd worked for them for 50 years, and my mom was a social worker, worked for the state. So.
Okay. Yeah, that used to be a thing where people would start with a company and work until they retire, and there was loyalty, and going both ways, I feel like, from the employer and the employee side. And that's kind of
Right.
seems to be a thing of the past.
Some of what his company did has influenced me, though, that they took very good care of their people. It was a corporation, but it was a family-held corporation. So, they were local, one office, a couple plants, and then salespeople all over. But I mean, they did stuff like they gave their employees interest-free mortgages in the 80s when that actually meant something, which I guess now we're kind of back to that time. But they really tried hard to take care of their people. And I think that I didn't realize it as a kid, but as an adult and seeing how the real world works and how much things cost, I understand some of that. So it's kind of influenced how I try to do things as well.
Awesome. How was school for you? Were you a good student or not so much into school?
I did pretty well. I have a very, I would say, like a trivia, or I remember stuff well, which makes me good at test taking. I don't know if that necessarily makes me smart or not, but when I took my contractor's test, the lady said she'd been doing it for 15 years, and I was the fastest person she'd ever seen to finish. Stuff clicks. So in terms of remembering, and I've been pretty good at math, so that helps in the business sense of it. So I probably was one of those kids that people would say didn't apply themselves.
Right.
But I did well in school though. So
it's funny seeing different, the way different people work. Cause I remember stuff I remember so much stuff, like everything. It's just, I can recall so much, but you sit me down in front of a test and I struggle. I struggle with that. I was not the fastest one on my contractor's exam. I can promise you that.
It's funny. I listen to morning radio, and you just hear these random tidbit facts of different things. Yeah. And I'll spit something out, and my wife is like, "How do you know that?"
Yeah.
I have no idea. I just heard it somewhere, and it stuck somewhere up there, and here we are. So
I drive my wife crazy because she'll bring something up. I'll be like, "Nope, that's not what you said a year and a half ago. This is exactly how the conversation went."
That sounds about right.
Oh my. So did you go straight from high school into construction?
I went to school for business up in the mountains, went to Appalachian State. When I went up there to visit, I absolutely loved I still love being outside. Don't do as much snowboarding as you get older and life gets in the way. It's more about life getting in the way than getting older, but I still love being outside, camping, hiking, and go study business because I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I figured it was going to be somehow related to business.
Yeah.
I answered an ad in the paper back when you had to get jobs that way.
Yeah, right.
Carpenter's helper, I think it was, and it was literally like $7 an hour digging holes and carrying studs around a construction site.
Yeah.
And I worked for that guy. I started that my sophomore year of college and worked for him every summer and part-time during the school year until after I graduated. And when I graduated, he was 31 at the time, and his knees always hurt and his back always hurt. And I was 22 and a half or so. And I was like, I didn't just do all this college to be 60 when I'm 30.
Right.
So I had a buddy that was a superintendent for a big track builder here in Raleigh, and ended up getting on with him and moving down here. And that was kind of a unique experience too, because most of the superintendents that were in their low 20s were kids that had construction degrees.
Yep.
And I did not have I thought about it, but I didn't. Once I figured out what I wanted to do, the construction people I talked to said, no, the construction's easy. The business is hard. Stay with the business. So it was interesting to me to see the different dynamic that I had with the subcontractors, because I looked at things differently because I had done it.
Yeah.
I had a summer job putting in security systems, and so I was the guy that was sweating in the attic. I was the young kid. I was the guy in the attic pulling wires when it was 120 degrees, or underneath a house laying in the dirt fishing wires through a house. So I had done a lot of this stuff, so I could kind of talk to them a little differently. And it's hard for, a 22-year-old kid to get the respect of a 45-year-old guy who's been a trim carpenter for 20 years.
Right.
But just showing them that it's not just theoretical. Like I'm not going to tell you to do something that can't be done, because I know how it has to be done. And I think that was very helpful. And that background for sure.
I have the exact same experience. So I moved from Wilmington, where I had a trim company and I was in the custom market. Mm-hmm. And then, during the crash that went away, and then moved up here for my wife's job and started over, and was like, it's going to take me too long to rebuild in the custom market. So I did the same thing. I went to a track builder and had the same experience. It was like, I built great relationships with the trade partners, even better relationships with the inspectors, because I knew what I was talking about. And you're right, they were pulling all these kids out of ECU with a construction degree that wanted to be on their iPad, but I was in the houses, walking the houses, and I was one of the few that could actually build a house if I needed to. Right.
It was. I had subs tell me, I remember one guy that was in charge of a neighborhood. Everything's an emergency. We're closing tomorrow. We got it. It's like, we're in the neighborhood every day. Yeah. We know when the house is closed. I look at him. I said, if I ever tell you the house is closing, the house is closing. I had an inspector. I remember with sidewalks. I call him. I say, hey, the sidewalk's ready to pour. He's mad. Is it right? Yes, sir. He said, okay, pour it. He said, the first time you screw me, you'll never pass another one. And I never did. I always double checked it. I knew what he was checking for, slope and thickness, and just make sure it's right. And let's go.
I found that a lot of people struggle with inspectors, but if you go in there not pretending like you know everything, willing to learn, and trying to build a little bit of a relationship, because you're seeing these people weekly, if not daily, and treating them, with a little bit of respect, then they'll do a lot more for you than you think.
Right.
Yeah. And I've carried that on into what we do now with the utility stuff. It's like, we don't just go work for our clients. We build relationships with the inspectors that are going to be coming behind us, so we know what they want before we get
very
called
much
out.
So. It's been interesting as I got into, when I was with the track builder, I was in one neighborhood. So I had the same inspectors on every single job. Now we do remodeling renovations in a 30-mile radius or 30-minute radius around Raleigh. So we might be with the Wake Forest inspector today and the Cary inspector tomorrow and Holly Springs next week. And so it's changed that dynamic a little bit for sure. But I do think it still carries over, some of the more difficult ones. If you just act like you're trying to learn from them, then you can get a long ways with just some curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. We had our one inspector that was, he's retired now. He was in Durham, but he was a framing inspector, and his thing that he would check on every single house was the 2 nails in the double and triple studs every 16 inches. And if they weren't there, and he would get in under the windows between the jack studs and the regular studs and getting that tiny little gap between them. And if he didn't see nails, you weren't passing. Oh yeah. I used to follow him around with a nail gun anywhere he said he needed them. Perfect. Pop, pop, pop. And, but also just talk to him while we were going through these inspections.
Right.
And then fast forward like 6 months, and he was nobody could stand this guy. And they're like, he won't ever come back. Like if anything's wrong or we're not ready when he shows up, like he's not coming back. You have to schedule it. And the day I told them, I was like, no, I got to get this done now because he's going to circle back around. They're like, what?
Right.
He does not come back. I was like, well, he's coming back today and I'm not going to mess it up.
No, that's, I had one on a job that started out very much like by the book, in the weeds of the codes, like no spirit of the law, the letter of the law. And the building code's massive, and that's hard to do.
Yeah.
I mean, we as hard as we try, it's still hard to get everything perfect sometimes. And by the end of the second job I had done with him on the final inspection, he fist bumped me like 3 times after having, kicked, no, what about this? What about that? And kicked that back. Where's your letter on this? And it was kind of neat to see that relationship kind of transform through the course of the project. So,
yeah. That's funny. Yeah, some of them like to flex too once in a while, and you have to deal with that.
Very much so.
What a lot of people don't understand that have an experience that like we have is that every single municipality has the exact same codes from the state of North Carolina. It's how they decide to interpret it and how their inspectors interpret it, and you have to understand their interpretation of it. Yes,
and it's kind of like relationship advice. Do you want to be right or you want to be happy? Sometimes you just have to like let something that you're like, I'm not sure this is it. But you still gotta have him for the next inspection. So even if you're right and you go to his boss and you tick him off, then the next one might be that much more difficult, So it's definitely a little give and take. And
yeah. So let's go back to college for a second. How useful or what kind of experience did you have? Because like when we were younger, it was, you got to go to college. You got to go to college for something. I don't know if that's how your parents were. That's how everybody I knew was. It's like pushing college. And then now it's like going the other way where, well, you don't really need college unless you're going into be an engineer or a doctor or whatever.
Right. It was, I don't know that they ever flat out said you had to go to college, but that was absolutely the atmosphere at the time. I don't even know that maybe the question didn't even come up. So that's why they never said it. I mean, I do think I got value out of it. I probably would have gotten a lot more if I had actually applied myself a little more and kind of known what I wanted to do, I think. But I mean, it certainly was good. I definitely feel like I learned some stuff from it. I think I was also very fortunate. I guess I didn't know at the time, but I was very fortunate. My parents helped pay for it. So I did work. They said, we can pay your living expenses, but we're not going to pay for you to go party.
Right.
So I did work the whole time I was up there, but I didn't work 40 hours a week the whole time I was up there. So, very fortunate. And I think I realized it when we got to graduation and everybody's talking about student loans and this and that. And I just called my parents and I said, thank you.
Yeah.
And so it kind of was born out of that. But I definitely think there was some value in it. I think it's and some of that value is probably due to that my somewhat unique circumstances of being able to like try real life, but with slightly less consequences, maybe. But from the educational side, I definitely learned some things.
You think you got more out of the overall experience or what was taught in the class?
The overall experience?
Yeah.
I think I could have gotten more out of the class than I did. I don't want to say not like taking it seriously, but just a 19-year-old kid I'm in the mountains. I want to go snowboarding. I want to go camping with my buddies. I don't, and I recognize there are people that are a little more deliberate about what they're doing, but I do think there is value there, or at least in that scenario there was. It's a very different the value proposition now is very different from what it was 20 years ago when I was there, so I am absolutely not of the school of thought now that everybody needs to go. I think there's a lot of things you can do and a lot of value that are better uses of your time and your money at that stage of life, probably.
Right.
In a lot of cases. I mean, obviously some people need the education too. We still need doctors and lawyers and engineers.
Oh yeah.
So, but no, I'm glad I wouldn't change it. if I had to do. I might would have done some different things while I was in college, but I wouldn't have, investments aside with the time machine.
Right.
I would have probably applied things a little bit differently and been a little more purposeful, but I certainly would
Do it again.
still go. Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. So did you look for other opportunities after you graduated, or you're like, construction's it?
I didn't really look at anything else. I stayed with that guy for a few months. I mean, I loved it. We were framing, at that point I was a crew leader, was making $15 an hour, which at that time and that place and that age, it might as well have been $1 million an hour. And I mean, we worked hard, but we're out there with our shirts off, with our tool belts on, blasting music. We're in the mountains. We were in the middle of nowhere a lot of times. It wasn't like building in a neighborhood here where there's a lady walking her dog right across the street.
Right.
We were in the middle of the woods and enjoyed it. You could see what you did at the end of the day. You don't carry any stress home from a job like that. You finish work, you go have a couple beers, you go home, you go to sleep, and you get up and do it again.
Yeah.
And no, I never really looked. And once I kind of got into it moved here and got into it from the management side, it's still kind of the same. Even if you're not directly doing it with your hands, you still play a part in building something. You're outside, which I enjoy. Now, I remember when I first moved here, I'd go walk my houses at like 6:30 in the morning because that was the time I could have when nobody was bothering me.
Right.
The phone's not exploding, your email's not going off, and I, seeing sunrises in the neighborhood and geese flying over and stuff like that, just kind of. And I say this as somebody who was gradually worked my way into now 90% of my job is sitting in front of a computer. It was just nice to be out doing something. I couldn't necessarily see sitting in a cubicle 8 hours a day for me personally. I know some people are totally into that, but that's not where I really wanted to be then or want to be now.
So you moved from the mountains to the Raleigh area for
Yes.
that job?
Yes.
Okay.
What
year was that?
That was in 2005, July of 2005. One of my best friends at the time was working for a builder in Raleigh and spoke very, very highly of his boss. And they were hiring, so I called his boss and applied for the job and went and did an interview, and they had a personality test. And I still remember the house we were framing. He called me back and said that my personality test was not exactly what they were looking for, because I'm very you've met me a couple of times. I love to talk clearly.
Yeah.
I'm very people oriented on that side of the personality test, like almost off the charts. And obviously for that job, there's a little bit of a task oriented, not a little bit, there is a large part of it that's task oriented. But my buddy had spoken so highly of this guy. After I got the voicemail, I called him back and I said, "Hey man, I got your message, but I do want to be in this industry and I do want to be in that area. I loved Boone, but the town was too small.
Right.
Wanted to get a little bit bigger town. Now we're right in the middle. I can get to the beach. I can get to them. But I said, I really want to be in construction in the Raleigh area. Was wondering if I could borrow a little bit of your time to see what I could do differently to try to improve things to make this happen either with you guys or with somebody else. And he called me back a little later. He said, "Why don't you come talk to us again?" And I came in again, and he said, "The fact that you were trying to improve yourself," and he's like, "You easily could have said, screw these guys, I don't need them. But you didn't do that. You were actually trying to improve." He said, "That tells me all I need to know about what kind of person you are. I don't care what the personality test says." So he ended up offering me the job at that second interview.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a pretty neat of him to, because this was a corporation. So he has some power, but this was a giant, national corporation. Yep. So he was sticking his neck out a little bit for me as well in some ways in that case. So
again, something similar. I met somebody who worked at a builder and they pushed to get me an interview, and I went in and I knew I had to sell myself, and I've always gone in and do an interview with a suit on. So I walked into that office with a suit on. They took me into a small room, sat down with these two guys, and they, you could tell they weren't feeling it. Like they were doing a favor for somebody.
Right.
But I sold myself to them because I could build a house, but I didn't know how to do all the task management stuff that they were doing on their iPads and everything else. And by the end, they were like, I don't know how you did it, but this was the best interview we've ever had. And within a couple of days, they gave me an offer.
No, that's cool. It's kind of fun when stuff works like, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. How long did you stay with them?
I was with them, a couple years and kind of got caught up in some of the first slowdowns of things. We were building a kind of unique product that came out in groups and was very fast paced. And I think maybe they knew that fast pace, at least in the particular part of it that the product that I was building, just they saw it not continuing necessarily. So I got caught up in some of the early slowdown stuff. Gave a kind of halfway go at the work for yourself. I worked with my uncle some, which was great. I learned a lot. He was very comfortable where he was. Wasn't really into like pushing, growing, trying to. So I think that exploration into being self-employed didn't really work out. It was great. There again, I feel like I've learned a little something from everything I've done. But and then so ended up back at another builder, much smaller builder that was not as systemized, right. And I was able to bring some of those systems that I had learned from the giant corporation that had house building down to a science into a smaller local builder and help them kind of, improve how they were doing some things.
Right.
Learned a little bit there too. So
the big builders, I've been in this industry here for 10 years now, and like watching the trends and like watching how the bigger builders or the biggest builders compared to the smaller, compared to the local builders, how they react during different times. Like there's so many tells of what the economy's doing if you look at the biggest builders and how their production's doing, how their land buying's going, where they're building at, if they're building outside the area, or if they're building inside the area. And then whatever they do, the companies that are like half the size of them will follow suit about 6 to 8 months later.
Right.
And then the smallest builders, they tend to keep going. And then when things get slow, the big builders buy up the small builders.
Right.
And then they all pick back up again. And I've watched this happen multiple times.
Right.
It's like, so like, I feel like even this slowdown that they've had in the production industry, like I've seen this coming for over a year because they've been, you can tell by the way they're moving, the way their numbers move,
right.
Different slight changes if you're following the industry. So I don't know. I find it very useful and I like picking up on the trends, but now seeing it through COVID, seeing it through this, what happened in 2008, like all of it is.
Yeah. It's been interesting to see all sides of it for sure. From the national builder to the local builder that still builds, triple digit. They were building 200 houses a year. So it wasn't a small company by any means, down to, then starting out on my own as a one person, even just looking at what you pay for stuff.
Yeah.
Like some of the, the big builder, the giant builder, and I was in to begin with was paying $3 a foot for a concrete slab. Then I go work for myself and I'm paying $5, $10, depending on what it is, $8, $10, $12 a foot for this. I still have a pretty good friend who works with one of those big builders, and I don't even talk pricing with him because I'm like, there's no point. It's just going to tick me off. So it's but it's also a very different. I'm asking a different thing. That builder, those concrete guys had 4 different slabs that they were pouring, and it was just. And I may be asking you to figure out how to get between this person's house and their prized rose bushes to pour a slab behind them. And no, you can't get the truck up there. You can't, it's you got to concrete pump it up there or get in a wheelbarrow or a Georgia buggy or stand on your head and juggle the concrete into the hole. Sometimes it seems like, so it goes both ways. We pay more, but I'm asking more too.
Yep.
So
absolutely. And I went in reverse. I went from the custom world to the production world, which was a shock to me from the other angle. It was like, but what I learned, especially as I built this business, was that when I was working in the custom world, I was working for to make a certain amount per job. Like that was my goal. And in the production world, I'm playing the averages.
Right.
So not over a month, but over, a year, 2 years, 5 years now. And now I'm looking for the next 5 years and what that's going to average out to be.
Right.
And that's how I play my numbers, which is a whole different world.
Mm-hmm. I can see that for sure.
Yeah. So you went to work you said for your uncle and did a couple other things.
Yeah, a little bit of time as a superintendent for another smaller builder. And then that was still kind of in that 08, 09 period. Ended up leaving that one when they kind of ran out of houses to build. And the guy was like, I don't have any houses to build, but I want to keep you. So do warranty. Warranty for a company like that is a miserable existence to be. I probably shouldn't go on the record as saying that, but it's just, it's you're graded on keeping a customer happy, but there's the budgetary concerns of everybody's got to be happy, but you can't spend any money. Mm-hmm. And so it's really, really difficult job.
Yeah.
And
a stressful job.
Yes, very much so. And the vendors, trade partners, subs, whatever you want. I back then they were subs. Now I would call them trade partners because we very much need everybody. I'm not sure some of those people felt that way, but I do feel that way. They didn't want to come back because they were already paid for it 6-8 months ago. You're generally dealing with homeowners that aren't in a good place and get caught between a rock and a hard place a lot. So I ended up leaving that for what I thought were greener pastures and some commercial construction. That was a combination of people that probably shouldn't, were not the best in terms of running their own business. I learned some stuff from it, a lot about how not to do things. And the commercial world is dollars and schedules. Yeah. And that's it.
That's one thing I don't have experience with. I've never made it into the commercial world.
One of the jobs I did, I started with them like the 1st of October, maybe. We worked every single day other than Thanksgiving from the day I started until the day before Christmas Eve. Literally every single day.
Overtime or salary?
Salary.
Yeah.
I was salary. There were some of the people that were underneath us were hourly, but I was salary. Even if it was, there might be snow on the ground. So this was a framer. There might be snow on the ground, so the framers can't frame, but there's a lumber truck coming. Right. Somebody's got to go unload that truck. So I'm out there by myself in the snow, sitting on a lull, unloading a semi truck full of bunks of 2x4s. And I just didn't. Maybe if it was a different company and a different environment, things would have been differently, but it was just a combination of things. And that didn't really work out, and it kind of slowed down. And they still had some stuff going on, but it just wasn't what I wanted to be doing. I knew that. And my dad at the time said, well, he said, you've talked about working for yourself a lot. You kind of tried it once, but you talked about it a lot. That kind of seems like that's been your goal. If you want to do it, why don't you try it now? I was single at the time. I was in an apartment. And he said, we can try it. We can see how it goes. It's a lot easier for you to, you don't have a house, you're renting it. If it all falls apart, that's easier to walk away from. And we can potentially help support you. We can't necessarily help support a family. So why don't you try this now, and either it'll work, and by the time you settle down and have the family and the mortgage, you'll know it's working and it's all good, or it won't work, and by that time you'll be doing something else. Yeah. I think I could kind of dive right into how Scoma, or how we started. It was fortunate timing where a guy that I knew that I had worked with at the first track builder was doing inspection lists for some realtors as like a side gig. He had his own contractor's license and was just doing it as a supplemental income. He still worked for the big builder, and he had a second kid, and he was like, I don't have time for the side gig. So he introduced me to the realtor at almost like the exact same time. And I started doing her inspection list, and she was was very good in her office and very respected. So very type A, very driven, high standards. But the flip side of that was if you could make her happy, then everybody else was like, if you're good enough for her, you're good enough for me.
Right.
So it quickly snowballed into a whole realtor's office worth of realtors calling me for all their inspection lists. And I was single. I was in an apartment. I did the inspection list. A lot of it I did myself during the day, what I could. I had some connections with trades from being in the business in the area. So I had a plumber, electrician, a heat and air guy for stuff that needed those licenses. But everything else, a lot of it, I just did it myself.
Right.
And I worked all day, and then I come home, and my desk was at the foot of my bed. I sat at the computer and estimated the next job at night, and that was kind of life back then. That's when I was doing the entrepreneur. That's working his life. That was kind of where I was. Right. And just kept, from the very beginning, and I still 16 years later and hundreds of customers and millions of dollars worth of business ultimately at this point, still feel it's the ultimate driver to me is doing it right. Yeah. It's people say back then it was, I would treat it like it was my home. Now, in a lot of cases, people say, well, what would you do at your house? I say, well, I would do this. You have a better budget than I do. If I was spending the money you're spending, I would probably do this.
Yeah.
So it's, but I think that was always kind of like a very much a defining, I never wrote it down. It wasn't like I sat down and I was like, this is our mission. This is how we're going to do things. Right. It was just, that's just how I did it.
Yeah.
Be on time. If you're not going to be on time, call them. Say, hey, it's
communication.
I'm 5 minutes late.
Yeah.
But I'm coming. And just a little bit of the golden rule, a little bit of just care. Yeah. I think that, just in seeing how other people treat things, even if you don't care, act like you care, but it's easy to do if it's genuine, and you can't teach that, but it's,
yeah.
It's easy for me to do because it's genuine to me, but with just try. Yeah. And I think that goes a long ways.
I think, getting in with a realtor, like if somebody's looking to get into construction and start their own business, like that's such an easy avenue to do it. You don't have to show up with a whole bunch of tools. You can pick up stuff as you go, and you get to learn how to fix things, make things work, think outside the box.
Yes.
Like there's so much that happens with that job because you're still trying to do it cheaply, but you're solving multiple problems at a time that other people aren't willing to do without going above and beyond and charging all this money. And, so there's the fix it right isn't really the right thing, but like fixing it the best you can with the circumstances that you're given and making everybody happy with it is a trick.
Well, and I did, in some cases, I would lose business because something like a door, super common doors, they rot at the bottom, and somebody wants you to, a door that's on the front door of a house facing south, it gets full sun all the time, there's a rotten spot at the bottom. I'm like, they want you to put Bondo on it.
Yeah.
Or cut out a little chunk and put a new chunk. And I'm like, no, it's not going to last. It's going to leak again. It's not going to look great while it does last. And the person who's buying your house is going to see the paperwork that you paid. They know who did the repairs. And I'm sorry, I appreciate where you're coming from. You're trying to get everything you can out of this house. I understand that. I see your interest, but I can't do that.
Right.
I'm not. And I had cases where people would ask me to do that, or I tell them the door needs to be replaced. And they said, well, that's too expensive. Okay. I had one particular case where the realtor brought me in on the purchase side, and they said I was too expensive to replace the door. And then when the person was selling the house, the same door that they had paid some other handyman to, I don't even know what he did, was leaking again. And this time they had to pay me to tear it out and put it back in. Because I said, the only way, just like I told you, 2-3 years ago, the only way I can guarantee you this door is not going to leak is if I take it out and put it back in the right way.
Yeah.
I said, I can put lipstick on the pig all day long, but you can't put Band-Aids on a gushing wound,
Right.
You've got to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And just, I think long term that kind of approach, it helped because what it morphed into as taking that approach. And then I began to value, I think some of it was the market change and some of it was started to value my own time a little differently. Is I started saying, okay, you have this inspection list. You want me to come look at it. I'm going to come look at it, which is an hour of my time. I'm going to quote it for you, which is however much of my time. And whereas in the beginning I was getting to work and doing it, nowadays people say, oh, you're quoting these repairs at $10,000. We can take that. We can go get it off the price of the house. And then they never fix the stuff.
Right.
And it's like, well, now I'm just quoting stuff and I can't make a living off of quoting stuff. So I started charging $150. But you got a home inspector. I mean, it adds up. You're buying a house. You got a surveyor come in, which back then was $500. You got a home inspector come in, which was $300. But I'm charging $100. I'm like, I'm not making a living doing these.
Right.
If you do any repairs, I'll credit it to the repairs. And I noticed when I started doing that the realtors kind of stopped calling for the inspection list, but I still got referrals for other stuff based off of how I treated them and how I did things. So the same realtors that might not call me for an inspection list, a homeowner would call me and say, hey, we just bought this house and we want to do the bathroom or we want to do a screen porch. And so said to call you.
Yeah.
And I mean, for a long time, I would get referrals from realtors that I'd never even heard of. And somebody said, so-and-so gave me your name. I'm like, are they out of this office? Because I do a lot of stuff at this office. And and it just kind of built and snowballed. And with the other projects to me are more fun anyway.
Yeah.
I would much rather help somebody turn their bathroom or kitchen into something they love than fix some rotten siding that really should have been this way anyway.
Yeah.
So it worked out for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Punch list stuff is like, it's a good way in and it's a good way to learn a lot of skills, but it's not fun for long. Getting into those bigger projects that you can sink your teeth into and like see it unfold in front of you, like that's fun. And
it's all people who need the quote yesterday because their due diligence is running out, and it just wasn't. It had to be. It was part of the evolution. It was. It's another thing that probably wouldn't go back and change, but it was not what the long term to me was. I didn't really want to be chasing my tail like that for sure. So,
and that's what I wondered. Why not? Because I know so many people that have went that route, and then 10 years later, they're driving around in a beat up van, still doing the punch list stuff. And which would be fine if that's what made them happy, but just miserable, works up and down, and they get stuck in that cycle. Like, what did you do to look to the future? Like, what motivated you to keep looking for more?
Was kind of back to I didn't necessarily want to be in the field doing, I like being outside, but I also don't necessarily, I mean, for one, you're capped. If you're doing it yourself, you're capped at how much money you can make. There's only so many hours in a day. I just thought there was more to it. I think it's taken me a long time to kind of see what it looks like, but I wanted a business. I didn't want a job.
Yeah.
And I may have not fully realized that until the last 6 or 8 months. I knew that I knew that that's what I wanted, but like really nailing down into what that means and how to get there. I don't know. I just wanted to do something different, but not that different.
Right.
I love working with people. I love being in people's houses, talking to them, learning about what they like, what they don't like, whether it's the house or otherwise. I mean, we've had you spend a lot of time in people's houses when you're working on their houses. So you have some interesting conversations and meet some interesting people and all different kinds of people. And a lot of them are people that otherwise you would never come across, Yeah. It's everything from tech guys that are 25 years old, geniuses, you're wondering how they're affording to do what they're doing, to retired people that have spent, 50 years in a career and have a little bit of wisdom. I remember one of the customers I had when I first started was a retired executive from one of the pretty large companies over in RTP. And same thing, I treated his very small job, a window with a little bit of rod on it, less than $1,000 job. And I treated him just like I did everybody else. I was on time. I tried to communicate the best I could and treated it like it was the most important job I could do at the time. And I will never forget, he said, I was kind of just getting started, and he said, Matt, if you treat everybody like you treated me, you'll be just fine. And the person, I had somebody make the window, and that person said, you'll never make it in construction. There's just not any, you can't, it was the same thing you're talking about, in the van, the truck. I was like, there's not that opportunity there. You're just going to grind and grind, and not you'll never make it, but
Right.
It's just a grind that you can't get out of the grind. And I was like, these are two people living two very different lives that are looking at the same situation and seeing two very different things. And the path that I want is this path, not this path. So how can I just recently have gotten systematic about it, but I always kind of had the idea of there's got to be something bigger up there. How can we get there? So.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. Going back to your first boss, I had moved here and just got in with a local guy doing remodel stuff, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and just whatever, building bathrooms, doing just a little bit of everything. And he was a great guy. And I started off working for him, and then I went on my own, and I would just bid jobs, and he would tack his stuff on top, and we'd go in and do them. And around the same time, this guy that I was going to church with, who's been in construction his whole life, like super successful, has a bunch of properties, but he's still doing the physical work all the time.
Right.
At almost 70 years old. He falls off a ladder, just a step ladder, but he's 70, ends up in the ICU. And then I'm under a crawl space with a bunch of guys, and the boss man shows up, and I'm watching him walk away, bow-legged, hunched over. And I had that same epiphany, like, I don't want to be climbing ladders when I'm in my 40s. Like, It's just not what I want to do. Like, how do I figure out, like, get to where I'm not the one doing the work all the time? And that's when I went to work for the production builder, looking for an opportunity to start my own business. And years later, that's what I've done. But like you, it took me a long time to get systematic about it. And it's hard. It's hard when you're in that daily like grind and just trying to keep everything moving, and till you get the right people in place that can take a little bit of that pressure off you. You can't even take time to figure out how to build the systems around it. It feels like,
but it's scary.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you look at, I just hired I was in business for 15 years, 14 and a half years before I hired a first real employee.
Right.
I had guys that I paid like essentially day laborers, but I used the same guys a lot. So I could pay them for the day to do whatever, but they didn't work for me full time. But like an actual W-2, this is what we're going to do. And it's like, okay, now this isn't just me. There's somebody else involved and their family and you're also committing to, you got to have having the money to pay them, saving it, and all that. And just giving up the control in some ways too, I think is part of it. Cause it's like doing things the way we did it is a large part of what got us here. Is he going to do it the way that I want it done?
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of all and I'm still very much in the middle of it. Like, I mean, I told you before we started, I've got an employee starting today.
Yeah.
To start helping me develop some of these systems and stuff. And it's just been interesting to me after doing it for this long, which, you hear all these statistics about, whatever percentage of businesses don't make it 5 years, whatever positions of businesses never reach this point in revenue. And I have kind of hit a lot of those milestones in large part just by caring and treating treating the customers right. I think that is more of story of the cause of me getting to where I'm at than I'm certainly not a numbers guru by any means.
Right.
You know, I was at a conference just last year. I hadn't even been to that many conferences. Somebody said something about KPIs. I'm on my phone like, what is a KP? You know?
Right.
There are like, I did a couple home shows like 10 years ago, but other than that, I have a website. So I wanted a website because, for one, I think in the contractor space, there are, now it's Facebook Marketplace. When I started, it was Craigslist. Like, there's people that don't have even less of a business than what I had. They don't have insurance. They may not have proper licenses, you know. And to me, I always knew that I wanted to do something bigger. So I bought the domain name when I started the company.
Okay.
I didn't, and maybe this speaks to my own prejudices a little bit. That's probably what my wife would say. But like, I wanted to have a matt@scomaconstruction.com. I didn't want to be a Gmail address for my business,
Right.
because I wanted it, like I didn't necessarily know how it was going to get there, but I knew I wanted it to be more and something legitimate. And I mean, now where you get to the point where you may be entering into a contract with somebody for $500,000 or more, you know, and they want to feel good that because I'm trusting them to pay me. They're also trusting me to take care of their home,
Yeah.
which is generally their largest investment. And, you know, some of these, somebody who's been in a house for a long time, we've got a job going on right now. We're doing an addition that's the same square footage as the house was before. They're paying us more for the addition and the remodel than they paid for the house when they bought it 10 years ago. And in my view, you've got to have some kind of a presence to generate a little bit of trust to get to that.
Yeah.
And that may be my own prejudice. I know everybody doesn't think that way, but so I kind of knew from the beginning that I wanted to be a little more, I wasn't fully purposeful and on board, but I had some inklings.
Right.
So, but I never looked at like, what's the ROI on this website? I just wanted a website so if somebody heard my name and went to Google, that they would find something
Yeah.
that I had at least a little bit of control over versus Yelp or Home Advisor or whatever, or, you know. So other than that, though, in a couple of home shows, I didn't spend anything on marketing.
That's great.
I just treated people right and I still to this day tell customers. I had a guy the other day, he said he's looking at two different options. I think we're going to work out and end up doing one of them, but looking at a couple of different options for a garage, a metal building versus a wood building. And he said, I know you're not impartial because obviously the wood building was significantly more expensive. I said, no, I am impartial. I said, I know what I would want for my house. That doesn't matter in this case. What you want, I said, here's the pluses and minuses. Yes, the metal building's cheaper. It's not going to match your house as well. I don't like cheap. It's less expensive. Nothing's cheap in the housing world, contracting world. But the metal building is less expensive, yes. But it's not going to match your house as well. You may not have as much flexibility. It just has a different feel to it. I said, but I am, it doesn't matter to me which one you do. I would rather you do the project that you love and I make what I need to make off of that, and you tell your friends that you love me, than try to push you into doing the more expensive project so I can make a little bit more money off of this one. But you're like, I should have done that. I was like, if I'm doing something else with my life other than owning this business and working in people's houses, something went wrong. Yeah. I'm in it for the long haul, and I only see that working if we can grow a little bit from everybody. And I don't want to leave a bad taste in your mouth. I would rather make less money and you love me and you tell your friend, your neighbors that you love me, and I can make a little bit off of them too, than try to take it all from you and leave you going, that guy, I should have done the metal, you know? So I truly am impartial. No, do what you want to do.
Yeah.
It's you hear people say in construction sometimes it all looks good for my house. That it has a bad, it has a bad connotation. It does. But there's also a reality of it doesn't matter what I want. It's not my kitchen. It's your kitchen.
Yeah.
So, that's how I use data. I don't usually say it all looks good I tend to say it doesn't matter what I want. It's not, I build stuff that I don't like all the time. You're the one paying for it. If you like it, let's do it. It doesn't matter if I hate it.
As long as they're not asking you to cut corners, right?
Right. As long as we're doing it right, but for style,
How did you, I know a lot of people struggle with trying to figure out who their clients are and put the right value on their product, and they'll do cheaper jobs or like, I don't want to say cheaper because there's all different size of jobs, but people that don't want to pay for quality and don't want to pay for your time, and they'll try and nickel and dime you. Did you at some point get away from those clients and go toward the people that want to do the work? Or like, what's a better way to say it? Like keeping your price at a certain point and saying that I can't go below this point on this type of job, or it's not worth my time because we're not going to be able to do it right, or we're going to lose money.
Yeah, I think to some extent when you have, which I finally put it in writing last year, but when you have like a set of values that you're willing to stand behind and you're living those, that problem takes care of itself a little bit. I did when I started, I would negotiate prices sometimes. I found every time I did that, I regretted it literally every single time. It would be, I have continuously over the entire time I've been in business, been working on the process of accurately job costing, but I try to figure out this is what it cost. This is what we need out of it. This is what your price is, and do it right. And I think in some ways that if nobody wins a race to the bottom,
right?
I'm working 1,000 hours a week and dead broke. You're not getting as a homeowner the quality. And back to the door example, oftentimes in a house, the lower cost option that's less upfront in the long run costs more.
Yeah.
Because you have to do it again. And so I think kind of when you, as a contractor, when you live that every day of we're going to do it right, you start to, the referrals come that kind of, it just weeds itself out. It's you don't get people that are shopping on price, purely on price, because you're not the, and I do talk, if I have a lot of repeat customers, obviously with no marketing referral based, I have repeat. I'll ask them, it's if they're getting another quote, which people still do it. It's just contracting. You can go online and find that computer 10 different places with 10 different prices. You can't exactly do that with the bathroom. I'm trying to change that. I've got an estimator on my website now where you can go on there and say, I want to do a kitchen. This is how big my kitchen is. This is what I want. It'll give you, it's a ballpark number. It's a very rough number because there's a zillion variables, but it'll give you a number right there. But I understand people have no idea. So even repeat customers sometimes will go to other people and I'll ask them, say, hey, where are we? I think one thing with construction is apples to apples is almost impossible to get.
Yeah.
Because people don't tell you anything. I use the same verbiage for a proposal that I use for a contract. So in terms of the scope of work. So I have permits all the way down to, I'll give them a separate line item for overhead, a separate line item for the consumables that go into your job. This is the surface protection, the plastic we're going to put up, the floor coverings, the dumpster that's going to haul the debris away, the porta-john in the front yard. Now, we don't have to get a porta-john. You want to let my guys use your bathroom? We can save you $100 over the course of a month.
Right.
$125, whatever. And it's, most people are like, yeah, just put the porta-john. But so I usually, if you actually look at apples to apples and people are doing the same thing, we're going to be right in the middle of the pack. If you get a person that's 30% less than I am, there's probably a reason.
Yeah.
Once you get to a certain percentage point, there's always a reason. Because I know how much it costs to do stuff. And I saw somebody online the other day talking about all the stuff that homeowners accept that they shouldn't accept. I said, you're probably right. They shouldn't. But you also have to understand when you shop with price as your be all end all driver, if you go the dirt cheapest price, you're going to get the dirt cheapest in some cases. And in a lot of cases, the person that's doing it right for that, it's not sustainable. So if they are doing it right, they need to be charging more because you can't keep it. It takes time to do it right.
Yeah.
And so if you're not being compensated for your time, you're not going to be able to continue doing it in the long run.
I feel like a lot of people, like if you listen to people online, they'll say, well, don't lay everything out like that line per line, group things together, budget on, or like, that way they can't pick it apart and start saying, well, I don't want this, I don't want that. Like, why do you do it that way?
Lots of people will tell you not to do it that way.
I know.
I do it that way because I think, for one, it does make it easier to compare apples to apples. For two, I've had a customer flat out tell me, we didn't end up doing the job because the financing side of it didn't work out for them. They were trying to outbuild their neighborhood, is what the bank said. But he was like, this was a 6-figure job, and he was like, you were $15,000, $20,000 higher than this other person, but they sent me a paragraph that said, we're going to do this renovation per plans, this price. It's like, yes, it was on their letterhead. They presented well. He said, but you sent me 3 pages of it. He said, I could already tell from the beginning that the level of thought you put into it now tells me that you're probably putting more thought into it and the job will actually go better. So we want you to do it.
Yeah.
And that also, I think, helps with some of that customer weeding out. And it lends you to the people that understand the value proposition of it. And that when it comes to not just houses, a lot of things, the best value is not at either end of the price spectrum. The cheapest person's not going to be the best value. The cheapest pair of shoes, the cheapest pair of pants, the cheapest tool. The most expensive one's probably not the best value either. The value tends to be somewhere in that spot in the middle. And I think some of the transparency and being open about things weeds out some of that. And I think it helps people be smart about how they spend their money. I always, if somebody has a conversation of this is what we want to do, I say, okay, they may kitchen, the bathroom, whatever it may be. They may have a laundry list of things they want to do. I say, okay, you obviously have a budget. I said, nobody wants me to ask what your budget. Nobody wants a contractor to ask what your budget is. He said, oh, you're just going to go right to the budget. No, I'm going to tell you what the job costs and we'll see what we can get in it. But if you have a $500,000 dream and a $50,000 budget, then we're probably not really having much of a conversation. But if you have a $500,000 dream and a $400,000 budget, like, let's talk about the dream. Let's talk about what's important or how we can potentially change things and how can we get something that fits in your budget, but also works with what you're trying to do. And if the dream is not completely out of the realm of possibility, I genuinely tell people, let's start with the dream. And then if we need to scale back, we'll scale back. I said that does 2 things for us. Number one, I'm giving you a giant number and scaring you up front, and then we're chipping it down.
Yeah.
So just psychologically, it's just easier. And number 2, it helps you be smarter. We built a house during COVID. Our budget got absolutely obliterated. But I think when you have that big picture, it helps you be smart. Like, wait, what can we cut and still get? Either we can cheaply do it or less expensively do it later, or it's not going to make that much difference in the grand scheme of how we enjoy the space. So let's get the footprint right. Let's get the structure right, because the structure is hard to change.
Yeah.
If we need to come back and pull up carpet for hardwoods in 5 years, we can do that. If we need to come in and put your shower glass in later, because we're saving $5,000 now by not putting this big, beautiful piece of glass in, let's do that. In our case, it was the circle drive. It's still not a circle, but we got in our house that works for us. So I think kind of approaching it that way. And that's the other thing that helps with that breaking everything out is you can say, look, this is what goes into your project. These things we can all change. This number, it kind of is what it is. We still got to protect your surfaces. We still got to get rid of the trash. Still got to have a bathroom. I've still got overhead. I base my overhead and a lot of those consumables based off of how long the job should take, not what you're putting in there. You know, it's in a lot of ways, my overhead is the same to install a tile that's 70 cents a foot as it is to install a tile that's $70 a foot. Yep. The tile guy is going to charge a different amount, but my insurance is still my insurance. My truck is still my truck. I'm still driving the same truck to the job site. So it really helps people to be smart about how they do things in the sense of scoping the job and working it out. And there again, I think it leans back to helping drive your clients to be the clients that you need.
Yeah. And I agree with it. It's for me, when I was doing it, it was transparency and building trust right out the gate, especially when they're shopping around and they're looking at different people. And if they take your quote and say, hey, can you break it down for me? Most of the people aren't going to do it.
Right.
And when you're dealing with a homeowner and it's their money or their loan and you know, on them, I think it's the right way to go. When you're talking about the corporate world or dealing with corporations now, figuring out how to bundle things together and have specific price points with less variation in it, that's more beneficial. So I see both sides of it, but I think for what you do, it's the right way to do it.
I think it is. And I think it's a lot of it is just that operational integrity and not, I think a lot of the reason a lot of people don't want to do it is because they want to bury stuff in places.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's fine. You know, everybody's entitled to run their business how they want to. But I truly believe that you can treat people right and be transparent and be honest and still have a very successful business. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it in other businesses. I've seen it in my own business. Yeah. And it to me, the long-term, what you put out into the world also determines what you get back from the world. You know, it's so I don't feel the need to hide that stuff. This is what we're doing. This is what it costs. I'm asking you to let me come in your house every day for 2, 3, 6 months. Your wife and kids might be there while we're working and you're out. That's a lot. There's a lot of trust there. Yeah. And I hadn't really thought about it until my business coach actually said something the other day. He said, when you do things as a contractor, how you do things doesn't just affect you as a contractor, it affects all contractors. Yep. He said, you know, because if you put a bad taste in there, or if this contractor over here does a job for you and doesn't do it right and puts a bad taste in your mouth, you might have another project you want to do, but you've got contractor fatigue. You're like, I don't want to deal with another contractor. I can't do this right now. I can't do another project. They're not communicating. They're tearing my stuff up. I can't go through this again. So now, even though I'm doing things completely different from this guy, I may not necessarily, you're not even entertaining the idea of doing your job because this contractor put such a bad taste in your mouth. I can't deal with a contractor right now. So I kind of feel like just raising the bar helps us all. And there's lots of houses and lots of people working on them. And it's just kind of it's not like there's a 10% market share remodeling contractor. It just doesn't happen that I know of anyway. Maybe it does. I don't, you know, there's thousands of people, millions of people nationwide doing it. And there's no Amazon of contracting.
Nope.
And what's interesting to me is the big companies that do a lot of it. If you actually dig into the weeds of it, and you generally don't hear good things about them from either side, homeowners or people that are doing work for them. Yeah. So that kind of has reinforced some of that belief of just trying to be upfront, be open, and not waste either one of our time. This is what we're trying to do. This is what it costs to do it the right way. We can either do it, or if we can't do it, that's fine. I understand, but we're not your guy.
Yeah. What So I'm wondering what your advice would be to a homeowner, because there's so many fly-by-night contractors. There's so many people that say they're a contractor, but for jobs under a certain amount of money, they don't even have to have a license. They'll break it up into different parts or different estimates so they can skate around that.
Right.
There's people that have been doing it a while that have a bad reputation with a lot of their clients, but it's not well known. Like how do homeowners weed these people out and find the right contractor? Because I feel like there's more bad ones than good ones on a daily basis.
In some ways, there are. That was, I remember saying this a lot of times when I started. It's amazing to me how easy it is to impress people in this space. That's actually something I'm discussing with somebody that I met through some online communities centered around remodeling and contracting. We're kind of talking about that right now. I think references are big. This is kind of an interesting topic for me to think about as somebody who hasn't traditionally done a lot of marketing, but is potentially looking at getting into doing some of it. I definitely think references, reviews, it's if you go to their website, I will go places online and try to educate people. And it's not just trying to sell them, it's help, it's ask this question. What are they going to do? Can I talk to some of your clients? What would you do in this case? The license part is pretty easy to look up. Do you have insurance? My business is largely referral based, so I don't necessarily have that issue of trying to vet. I think some of the world is changing a little bit in post-COVID, not a little bit, a massive amount in both post-COVID and just the way the world is going. And you are seeing some of the online presence become more important than where it used to be. I do work for you. You go to your office and you talk to this person at the water cooler, that person in the break room, and the word gets spread that way. You're seeing some of this stuff now where it becomes the online presence. But I also think you can still, you can build a presence that has value for me and for homeowners, which is also something I'm actively working on now, though, is kind of putting that out there that it's how do we choose a tile? How do we choose a countertop? And that's probably something worth thinking about, putting that out. How do you choose a contractor? Right. Would probably be worthwhile for me to dig into, but I am just in the early stages of talking with someone who's looking for a kind of pre-construction contractor vetting thought process. We're building out this is for people that have already found us, but we're currently building out some processes for making decisions, because you don't know what you don't know. Yep. So you're going to have to pick your countertops, your cabinets, your hardware, your tile, which way do you want your tile? There's so many decisions. And so often, you get, once the kitchen's torn up and now you as a homeowner are like, oh, I got to pick a backsplash now. And you could have picked the backsplash 6 months ago when we were first having this conversation. So we're kind of actively building that out from a contractor side. And he was looking at the same thing of how can we let the homeowners kind of know what they need to make and what decisions they need to make and how to vet the people that are doing it. And to some extent, you're always jumping off a cliff a little bit, I guess, at least the first time. It's, we don't actively recruit insurance work for a number of reasons, but I do some insurance work. It's generally a client who we did something else for, who then had a problem and is like, I want you to fix my problem. I had a guy that we added a wall for him to split up a room to make an office. Added a wall and a door. He said, hey, the one of these fly-by-night roof companies came by, knocked on the door, got us approved by insurance for a roof. I saw how they did the other roofs. I don't want them to do my roof. I want you to do my roof. And my neighbor wants you to do his roof too. So I went over there and did 2 roofs for these people. No marketing, no, just because I treated him right on the $2,000 add a wall with a door in it 5 years ago. and that stuck with him. And now he's calling me to do this that,
Yeah.
so I think that in some ways it's just a leap of faith, the first go round. But I mean, there's lots of ways to find information these days. It's the older people like the Better Business Bureau. That wouldn't be where I would go. I'll just leave it at that.
Yep.
But there's lots of ways to get information about who's out there these days. So I think, try to find a referral if you can, people that have actively used them, and try to dig a little bit.
Yeah. I think a lot of it, I hate to put it on the homeowners, but a lot of homeowners put themselves in that situation by, coming in with a hot dog budget expecting caviar. And when somebody presents, oh, I can do this project and come in at your budget, and they get excited. So I think and they'll pick that person just based off of that because they think that they can make it happen.
Right.
I think doing homework ahead of time, understanding what a project like that typically costs, like shopping around a little bit, going to a cabinet store, going to just talking to people that are in the industry, like some sort of idea to get like what the budget should be. And then knowing how you're going to have that budget when it comes time for different prices to come at you. Because when you don't quite have the money and somebody dangles that carrot in front of your face, it's kind of hard to say no at that point. People get so worked up and want it right now.
Become friends with a contractor. That's I don't ever actively solicit work from friends of ours. I have, had plenty of friends that did a project and we've done work for plenty of them, but we've also had some that for whatever they did, stuff happens. There is potential for something to go south. Sometimes people don't just because of the potential, but I will gladly answer your question. And I usually joke with a lot of them. I say, do you want an opinion or a professional opinion? Because the professional opinion costs money. But I mean, it's any information you can get, and this sounds good, or this sounds a little wonky, or that number's low. I'd be scared. That's too low.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's giving advice. Sometimes, we're in the design phase of doing a bigger job with some friends that we just did a job for 2 years ago now too. So it goes both ways, but I just think there's just so much information out there. Just do some due diligence, and as hard as it is, price in something like your house cannot be generally everybody has a budget.
Yep. But
I think to get the best value long-term for being in your home, you have to adjust the project to your budget, not your budget to the project. Did I say that right?
No, you might have had it backwards. No. Yeah. You can't adjust
you've got to adjust what you're doing to what you can afford.
You can afford.
Yeah. So
got it.
So, and that's also, my primary customer, I don't do stuff for people typically for like flippers.
Right.
My customer it's not a real estate investor. It's somebody who they like their location. They just don't like something about their house. So that's also a product of that,
Is that a part of your process when you're talking to potential clients? Is like, whenever you're going over the scope, like, are you planning on living here for 3 years? Are you planning on living here for 10 years? Is the value worth it?
Absolutely. I'd absolutely ask the question. I've had clients in the past that were, if it was somebody that, I remember I had one guy one time that he was an older retired gentleman, and he wanted to, he had his scope of work he wanted to do. I said, well, you could do this a little bit differently, and it might be a little more cost effective for you, a little better value. He said, Matt, this is the last house I'm ever going to have. I'm ultimately going to die in this house. This is what I want, and I'm not worried about value engineering it. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. But I always kind of try to present that this may be, and you can tell by the conversation if that's their big driver. Is it cost? Is it we want to be here? Is it just we can't move and we're trying to go in the short term? And I absolutely will kind of steer, well, you could do this and get or a lot of times I'll ask them, do you want input or do you just want to tell me what you want?
Right.
I think there's a lot of value in that question. It's
Absolutely.
What are you looking for from me? Do you want me to just build what you tell me, or do you want me to give you, like, I'm not a realtor. I can't give you real estate advice. I can, one of the common things everybody says, you need a closet to have a bedroom. No, you don't need a closet to have a bedroom. A realtor will tell you need a closet to have a bedroom. The government will tell you need a smoke detector and a way to get out that's not the door.
Yeah.
So you need a window and a door, a window of a certain size and a door. And as long as you have egress, a smoke detector, and a door, the government says you can call it a bedroom. You can put your clothes in a piece of furniture. So, if you want advice, I'll be glad to give it to you within what I'm qualified to do. I try to stay out of design stuff just because that's just not, I'm not a designer.
Right.
I am, I will answer any functional question you want to ask that I can to the best of my ability. Another line I like to use a lot with building science: if you ask 5 people the question, you'll get 7 different answers. But I don't do colors. I don't, what would you do? It doesn't matter what I would do. It's not my kitchen.
Yeah.
This is what I would do functionally. Stylistically, pick whichever cabinet doors you want. Get plywood boxes. Don't get particle board boxes. There's my functional advice. The door doesn't matter. That kind of thing. So, but I very much try, if they want advice, then it is framed by what they're looking to do, to your point. And it generally, with somebody who was just a flipper, they're primarily cost driven and also oftentimes willing to cut corners that I'm not willing to cut. Whether it's having an unlicensed plumber or whatever it may be.
I think homeowners put too much faith in the inspectors. They think they're going to go above and beyond the scope. That's just not a thing. I've seen lots of things that were signed off on that aren't going to last very long or haven't lasted very long.
Well, in a lot of cases, the code is kind of a bare minimum. Not in in every case, the code itself is a bare minimum.
Yeah.
If you build a floor to the letter of the code, you're going to have a bouncy floor. Your deck built to L over 360, I think, is the deflection allowed in a floor. You truly span those joists at L over 360 and you get 25 people on your deck having a party, that floor is bouncing. It's not going to fall, but it's bouncing.
Yeah.
You're going to feel people walking across it. And there's lots of stuff like that the code is okay, but if we can do a little better, in some cases it may be worth it to do better. And, look at all the advances in energy efficiency.
Right.
You can go well beyond code and energy efficiency. And there does become a point of diminishing returns. It gets really hot here. It doesn't get super cold. So you might get to a point where adding any extra insulation you're never going to make that money back. But the difference between code and that point is a long ways.
Yeah.
And there's a tremendous difference in your power bill in that gap. If you build to the code minimum, your power bill is this. If you can go a little bit farther, you pay more up front, but over the long term of owning the house, you're paying less. And, it's potentially having a better environmental. I mean, there's lots of different stakeholders and different angles you can take. You're using less power, so that can go to other things, or it's cheaper to own. And at the front end in construction, you can oftentimes roll it into a fairly low interest rate mortgage or some kind of loan that's comparatively speaking low interest rates versus having to use your credit card to pay your $600 a month power bill.
Right.
So I think there's a value proposition there, even if it's not purely green driven or whatever, just dollars and cents, you can make it to where in the long run, you can end up in a better place by doing a little more on the front end.
Yeah.
I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. We appreciate everybody for watching. We appreciate the growth that we're seeing. We're getting amazing guests. We still need to get a little bit more reach to keep this momentum going. So help us out. Drop a comment, like, follow, subscribe, share if you love the content. Help us continuing to get amazing guests with amazing stories and help those stories get around the world like they should be. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode.
I know when I was working in residential construction, it was, I saw big changes when HGTV and Pinterest got real popular. It used to, I got to go in and have a little bit of creative freedom in the furniture I was building, or like the cabinets I was making or whatever. And then all of a sudden I start showing up and I'm getting handed these pictures and like, I want this. Did you have that experience, and like, how did that change your business?
I absolutely have a love-hate relationship with HGTV. I do think to some extent, it depends on what you're looking for too. There is a lot of value in a client that knows exactly what they want. Having dealt with some who can't make a decision to save their lives, that has its own set. It's not the creative freedom, but that for what I'm doing, that I don't necessarily view it as a creative space. I enjoy woodworking as a hobby.
Sure. Like
furniture, building stuff I do it at my house. I don't do it for clients because I would be broke. or I would be selling, $100,000 tables because it takes me so long. I made a table for my wife for a birthday present, and she got it. Her birthday is in April. She got her present Christmas the year after the birthday it was supposed to be for, because that's when I actually finished it. But that's my creative outlet. I don't necessarily see the job stuff as creative. So I actually would prefer somebody to say, this is what I want. I think it makes the whole process go more smoothly, which is not just easier for me. It's easier for you as a homeowner. If I have your house torn to bits and you're having a hard time making decisions, that's prolonging how long your house is torn up. And so I do think there's a lot of value in that. I think to me, I love the Pinterest thing. Show me the picture of what you want your bathroom to look like, and we can get you there. My big beef with the HGTV and stuff like that is how easy they make everything look.
Yeah.
And
how quick.
part of my sales pitch is, this is not going to be easy. And anybody who says, I say sales pitch in quotes there, it's not going to be easy. And anybody who says it's going to be easy is lying to you. We're going to be in your house every day. It's going to be loud. There is going to be dust. We can try to manage the dust. We cover your floors. We put plastic up. We can use fans strategically. We can use filters. There's still going to be dust.
Yeah.
It's not a clean room. It's not an operating. There is going to be a mess. You're going to have to make decisions. You're not going to have you're going to be living out of a microwave in your refrigerator in your dining room for 2.5. Like, any contractor who says that they're going to make it easy is lying. So let's try to make it as painless as we can. Let's try to get that journey in. And I think that's where the HGTV is hard, where people go to work and then they come back and they have a new kitchen. So yeah, we could do that for 3 times the money. And your quality is probably still not, I mean, that's probably up for debate, but I would argue the quality is still not there, even if you spend the money to get it done.
Yeah.
And I know people who were on some of those shows. So I've actually had conversations kind of behind the scenes of how it actually went. So I think it's good I like the idea aspect of it for me, but I could see how if your jam is doing custom built-in cabinetry that you're designing yourself. Yeah. I don't want you to tell me exactly. Just like if I want to build a table or a bench or something, give me an idea, but don't say I want this.
Right.
So I can see that from that outlet, but for me personally, the business is not where I do that. So I would actually prefer to have, this is what I want. And
Yeah.
it just makes life easier for me.
Well, we're starting to run out of time. So I want to ask about things that you've mentioned along this conversation. Like, how important was your dad to help you get to where you are now? Because you brought him up at a couple key points in decision making in your life.
Both of my parents were tremendously important. I think it's a couple of things there. I mentioned, fortunately, the very literal financial aspect of it. I didn't realize that as a kid how important, but I mean, that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
But recognize your privilege, as the kids say these days. But also, I think philosophically, how you do things matters. And I mean, even just within the last month, my mom asked me a question about what my dad should wear somewhere. And I answered it. And she said, Matt, that was the wrong answer. I said, well, it's the truth. And that's kind of that's what you created. So you're going to deal with it. Right. Like that's important to me is I tell my kid all the time, not fair. I'm not going to say fairness because I don't think life is not fair.
Right.
But how we conduct ourselves and integrity is very important. And so I think they also kind of instilled that value set into me that influences how I treat people, which has allowed the business to grow over tenfold in terms of revenue over all these years without hardly any marketing, just purely from operating from a place of integrity and treating people the right way. So I think they were absolutely instrumental in several aspects of getting to where we're at today.
And then I guess there's a point where once you go so far down a path that you're going beyond their knowledge, and then you have to find other people. And I'm curious about this as well, because, everybody's selling a course online. Everybody is telling people how to do things. There's conventions all over the place. So I'm curious about your experience with finding the conventions, how that process has gone, and the value add.
I may have to come back to you on that.
Okay. And the mentor, I mean,
well,
the mentors too, because you keep bringing up mentors and like how important is that?
Well, the one, I haven't done a whole lot of conferences typically.
Right.
I just, for several reasons, I wasn't sure of what the value in it was. I mean, budgetary, it costs money to do these things. The first one I did was because it was the project management software that we used. And I really liked how they did things and how they did as much as the software, it was how they did their service and how they were very big on training and teaching. So I went to learn how to use the software. And I think I actually gained way more from the experience, the people that were in the room, than I did from what I actually learned. I learned some stuff about the software, but that's here.
Right.
I talked to a bunch of other contractors and saw how they did things and got a tremendous value from that. And as far as like the coaching or the mentorship and the paid capacity, the particular person I ended up going with had a very low barrier to entry. So it was not they had a group coaching program, which was not very expensive. And it's like, oh, well, we can try it. There's no commitment. It's not. And I very quickly saw a tremendous amount of value in that. And after having done it for a couple months, I said, I would like for you to come in more personally into my business and let's see if I get this value from just being part of a group where you're talking to 20 of us, where is the ROI going to be if you're actually coming into my business? So that's why I said I have to come back to you, because I haven't even, I've signed up for it, but I haven't even started the one-on-one coaching yet. But I think it's, in terms of cutting through the noise, there again, we're back to the information gathering. It's podcast, it's videos, it's what have they actually done in some cases too? Because
right.
it's I mentioned to you before we started, it's, are they giving advice to something that they have actually done? Is it a 24-year-old life coach can't coach a 40-year-old married person with 2 kids and a mortgage, but have they actually done it? Right. Have they built the business? Are they balancing? And that we haven't even touched on that. That's very important to me too, is that work-life balance.
Yeah.
Both for myself and I am working hard to make it also a big thing for the people who work for me, because I don't want them. I told a buddy 20 years ago, work to live, don't live to work. And I do genuinely believe that. But I think it's, are they doing that? Do they have that balance? Do they we all play multiple roles. I'm not just a business owner and a boss. I'm a husband. I'm a dad. I'm a friend, and trying to balance all of those. I want to take advice from somebody who I feel is also doing that. I don't necessarily want to take advice from somebody who's working 100 hours a week in their business, because I'm not doing that. So if that's what you're telling me I need to do, I need to find another avenue to get there.
Right.
So I think the same as the homeowner, just collect the information. And I did a lot of it through podcast and through kind of vetting that they had actually done. I mean, some of it's easy to vet, social media people, a lot of people that are in this space put everything out there. You can see if they have a wife and kids. And
Right.
obviously you can't tell necessarily how anybody can put their best life on social media,
Yes.
but if they at least have a wife and kids, they're more qualified than the person who just graduated college last spring and is telling me how to balance time with my 6-year-old and owning my business.
Right.
When I was that age, that's all I was doing was working. Once I got past the having fun stage of life and got serious about work anyway, that's all I did. So I wasn't in a position to give advice to somebody. So I think just making sure to the best of your ability that they have relevant experience to where you're trying to be and what, it's, you're not going to, I don't know. I don't want to single anybody out, but you don't want to go down. Right. You always want to go up, and that ties into kind of I've been more purposeful and systematic about it recently, but throughout the whole time I've been in business, it's been a continuous try to get a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I necessarily knew that, like, it wasn't like I was purposeful, or I don't know what the right word about it is, but just, that's what was happening, even if I didn't know what was happening, is just trying to do everything a little bit better. And so I think you can kind of pick and choose, and sometimes you just got to take a chance. You just got to step off the cliff. And I think that was kind of just a little chance to me with the group coaching. I saw so much value in it immediately. I was like, oh, okay. And you think about it, if you want to learn anything, probably going to go to a teacher.
Yep.
I did jujitsu for a while. I went to somebody to teach me jujitsu. I wanted to get into rock climbing. I took a class. So why not go to a teacher for the business? It's, how else are you? I mean, you can learn through mistakes.
That takes time
and money.
and money.
But if you can shortcut some of those by somebody who's been there before, why not?
So what do you find so far? What do you find the most value in? Is it the advice that you're given or the questions you're being asked to make you think different?
Right now, it's the questions.
Yeah.
I think, as I said, I literally just leveled it up. I think it will get to the advice,
Sure.
but right this second, I think it's the questions. I think it, in a lot of ways, is the people you can surround yourself with. It's whatever level of business or life you're at, if you may not even know what's out there. I mean, I was very much, when I went to this conference, and it's, you see people doing this, you're like, oh, that person's crushing it. But then you see this person doing this, and you're like, oh. So I think it's just kind of like getting around people that are doing what you want to do. It sounds cliche, but it kind of levels up your whole mindset of what's possible, what is even out there. And that, I think, has been a lot of a tremendous value to me, to just start, like, it kind of took me off cruise control and being content with, and it's not at all, to me, it's not, and I think the people that are really, it's not about the money, it's about just doing it better and leveling up how we're doing things and how and I think what I'm seeing is, if you do that, then the money will take, that's another thing. Back to my dad, he used to, mind your pennies and your nickels, and the dollars will take care of themselves.
Yeah.
So if you look at the job and doing the job right, the money is, you don't have to worry about the money, because it will take care of itself. So that's been my experience.
Yeah.
And obviously we're at levels and trying to break through to the next one. So that's going to change. Sure, as you start adding employees and juggling more pieces, then that's going to add a little bit of a different factor to it. But as far as like the getting started of it, which in some ways I feel like we're getting started, but also have been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
So
I feel like the best people at giving the advice are the ones that help you find the answer without giving it to you. And that goes a long ways. But I know you got to get out of here. Anything we didn't talk about that you want to before we get to our closing?
I don't think so.
All right. One question, Scoma. Where'd that name come from?
My middle name is Scott Matt Scoma. I did not want to use Howard because there's lots of Howard construction variations. There is one other company in the country that uses Scoma in the name, and it's a seafood restaurant in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I've had a client who's eaten there. But it when I started it there, I don't know that I was purposeful about what can it be, but I was also back to the website. I was mindful of it. So I wanted something that was unique, that stuck out, that had the ability to scale and to grow. And
Awesome. One tool you can't live without on the job site.
tool I can't live without on the job site. As much as I absolutely despise this answer, today it would have to be my phone. For me, it's when I was wearing a tool belt working every day, I would probably say the tape measure.
Yeah.
Now though, it's documenting stuff. It's pictures, which I need to do better at. But in all honesty, now it's either the phone or the camera or some kind of note taker.
Yeah.
So something electronic. I am fully invested in the tech side of it for sure.
Favorite project you've ever done?
Oh man. That's hard. That might be the hardest question you've asked the whole time. We've done some really neat outdoor spaces, whether it's like a covered patio with a fireplace, just stuff that I like. We did last year, did an absolutely gorgeous kitchen in a house that you may not realize from the outside has this beautiful kitchen in it. You know, I think that's neat to me, like the hidden gems.
Right.
I think it's going to sound like a cliche again in a marketing pitch, but I mean, really the stuff that people get excited about. The stuff that I don't enjoy is, we did one years ago where we were supposed to be replacing a door, and when we took off one piece of rotten siding, the wall underneath it was all rotted. So it grows into somebody spending a bunch of money just to get back to zero.
Right.
Not zero in dollars, but get back to the black line where their house should be. They're the least favorite ones, but all of the ones where you do something and you get that client that you run into, whatever, and I love it. I mean, I just had one the other day. I went to go look at something. We built their porch last year, and we loved the porch. Just that is what the people that get excited about it is what really jazzes me up. So,
most challenging job you've ever completed?
That's a hard one too. That's why I'm not sure I want to answer it on the record either.
That's fine.
I think most of our challenges come from setting expectations. I think as a contractor, and this is something I'm learning myself every single day and trying to improve. And I heard somebody else say this, so I'm fully stealing their words. But as a contractor, we don't generally have construction problems or even construction challenges in some cases. We have expectation challenges. And I think that is a very, very, very true statement. Yeah. So I don't know that I can nail down one specifically, but I do think there is a common thread where most of the challenges are expectation setting. They're created through doing a poor job of setting expectations.
All right. So tell people how they can find you, how to get in contact with you.
We're on Instagram, trying to get onto Facebook as Scoma Construction. That's one thing I struggle with, is putting some content out. We've got a website, raleighremodeler.com or scomaconstruction.com. And we do have some pricing tools on there because, like I said, you can't shop these things, and I really am trying to educate people. So I want to get it out there. This is what we're doing. And give us a call. I'll be glad to talk to you.
Great. We end every interview the same way because once I figured out my definition, it changed how I run my businesses and my home life. How do you define success?
How do I define success? That's along the lines of a lot of stuff I've been thinking about recently. I would say I define success by leaving a situation better than you found it. So whether it's a relationship or a business transaction, or if you can leave it a little bit better than it was when you got there, I think that's probably successful.
Perfect. That's a great way to end it. Thank you for your time today. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me.